You know what hurts the most? It's not when they yell. It's when they decide things about your life like you don't even exist, like your feelings are just background noise. That's what happened to me. I bought a place on my own, paid every cent. And one dinner, that so-called family dinner, shattered it all. This isn't just one of those revenge stories. It's about learning that sometimes love has to begin with locking the door. My name's Danica Reeve, and for the first time in years, I live alone. Not roommates, not relatives, just me. On the 6th floor of a building in Midtown Nashville, where the morning light cuts across the window panes like ribbons, and silence has finally stopped feeling awkward. It took me 6 years to get here. I don't mean just physically, I mean 6 years of working weekends, skipping birthdays, pulling 12-hour shifts, and spending way too many nights with cold noodles and an open laptop. But you know what was harder? Getting to a place where I no longer felt guilty for doing things just for me. Growing up in the Reeve household, I was the middle kid, not the baby everyone coddled, not the gifted one with potential, just reliable, steady. I got a gold star for being useful. And they used me, quietly, efficiently, like a dishwasher that never complains. When I was 12, my mom volunteered me to watch her cousin's toddlers all summer. No pay, no choice. "Denise is struggling," she said. "Don't you care about people?" I did. But nobody ever asked if anyone cared about me. That was the pattern. In high school, I patched up my own clothes and made my own lunch, while my older sister Laurel got braces, therapy, and an entire birthday weekend in Charleston. When she failed a semester in college, Dad blamed the system. When I got a 3.8 GPA, nobody blinked. Then there was Gavin, my younger brother. At 24, he's still figuring himself out, which somehow means my parents pay his rent, cover his bounce checks, and call it supporting his journey. Me? I bought my own car in cash. Nobody clapped. I learned early on that being responsible didn't mean being respected. It meant being invisible, because if you didn't cause trouble, nobody had to pay attention to you. They said, "We trust you." But they meant, "You're not allowed to need anything." A few years back, I got pneumonia. I was hospitalized overnight. I texted my mom from the ER, hooked up to an IV. Her reply? "Okay, drink some soup. Laurel just broke up with Ryan again. She's devastated." I remember staring at that message for a long time. Not even angry, just hollow. People always say family shows up when it matters. Mine only shows up when it's convenient. Still, I kept showing up. To Sunday dinners, to gift exchanges, to fill the empty seat, smile when told, and listen to the same stories while no one noticed the weight I carried. I used to think that if I was quiet long enough, they'd realize I needed help too. Spoiler alert, they didn't. This apartment became my quiet rebellion. I chose every inch of it, from the soft grey couch to the framed photo in the kitchen I took on a solo hike in Utah. No one helped me move in. No one offered money. But somehow my space was still seen as available, and it didn't stop there. My mum had a habit of dropping by to clean when I was travelling. Once I found my bathroom reorganised and my spare room filled with boxes she didn't have room for. I changed the locks. She acted like I committed treason. I'm not cold. I'm tired. Tired of being a utility to people who only call when they need something. I built this life brick by brick, and all I ever wanted was for them to knock before walking in, literally and metaphorically. But they never did, and deep down, I think they never saw me as a full person, just an extension of their needs. So when they finally crossed the line, when they decided, without even asking, that my younger sister Ellery would be moving into my home, my office, my peace, it wasn't just rude, it was betrayal. One that had been simmering for decades, and I wasn't going to let it happen this time. If you've ever been to a Reeve family dinner, you'd think it came straight out of a magazine. Matching silverware, folded linen napkins, a roast no one dares critique, smiles that feel too perfect, like everyone's performing. I showed up 10 minutes late on purpose. It was my small act of rebellion. Dad opened the door in his usual weekend polo, gave me that half-hearted side hug he reserved for birthdays and funerals. Mum was in the kitchen fussing over the roast. Ellery, already on the couch in sweats, scrolling her phone like she owned the place. "Victoria, take a seat. I just reheated the roast," Mum called out without turning. She hadn't used my real name in years, but when she did, it was always when I was about to be told something, not asked. The dining table was set like a wedding centerpiece, clean, perfect, soulless. I slid into my seat, silently counting the seconds until someone dropped the bomb. It didn't take long. 20 minutes in, Dad set down his fork, cleared his throat. That was the signal. I stopped chewing. "Ellery needs a place to stay for a while," he said casually, like reading the weather. "We talked it over. She'll be moving into your apartment." I blinked once. "My apartment?" I asked, tone calm, but my stomach flipped. Mum poured more wine for him. "Well, you're always away for work. The second bedroom is just collecting dust." I slowly set my glass down. "You decided all this without asking me?" Ellery looked up and gave a smug little shrug. "It's just temporary, until I figure things out." She said it like she was asking to borrow my curling iron, not hijack my home. I let out a soft, dry laugh. "That's not how this works." Dad sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Danica. It's only a few months." Only. Always only. Only one summer to give up my room. Only one cousin to host. Only one little favour for 10 years. And now, only my apartment. "You didn't even call to check," I said. "We didn't think you'd mind," Mum said, stacking her plate. And I swear, this is the part that made my skin crawl. She turned to Ellery and added, "We'll bring the queen bed from the garage. It'll fit in just fine." I stared at my plate like it could explain how we'd gotten here. "You all had a whole conversation, made a moving plan, borrowed a truck, and you're telling me now?" Silence. Viewers, real talk here. Have you ever felt like you were just background in your own family's decisions? Like your name is used more often in sentences that start with "she'll handle it" than "how does she feel?" If that's ever been you, say it, because honestly, sitting there, I felt like furniture, convenient, quiet, movable. I took a breath. "No," I said, "I don't agree to this." Mum's voice dropped. "Danica, this is family. Families help each other." "Great," I snapped. "Then let her sleep in the living room, or Aunt Carrie's basement, or, I don't know, get her own place like I did when I was told to grow up at 19. That landed like a slap. Ellery leaned back. "Wow, you don't have to be rude." I turned to her. "You don't have to assume I'll rearrange my life to save yours." Dad shook his head. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "No, I'm just done playing the role I never auditioned for." I pushed my chair back. The scrape against the hardwood was sharp, like punctuation. As I walked to the door, no one followed. Not even a "wait," because they didn't expect me to leave. I was the one who always adjusted, always nodded, always stayed. Driving home, I left the windows cracked to feel something real. The air was cold, but it felt more honest than the people I just sat across from. And that was the moment I realised this wasn't about a spare room. This was about how they'd never once stopped to ask, "What does Danica want?" They just assigned me roles. Caretaker, peacemaker, backup plan, never daughter, never equal. That night, I stood in my office, the so-called extra room, and looked around. It had my blueprints, my NGO vision board, my only real space that didn't ask anything from me, and now they wanted to drop someone in it like it didn't mean a thing. I picked up my phone, opened the Notes app, typed, Every time I said yes when I wanted to say no, I taught them how to ignore me. Then I hit save, because I wasn't going to do that again. I didn't cry on the drive home. But there was a moment at the third red light where I caught myself gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers went numb. Not from sadness, from pressure, like everything I'd been holding in since I was 15 suddenly wanted to break through my skin. I wasn't surprised my parents made a decision for me. That wasn't new. What hit harder this time was that they didn't even pause to pretend I had a say. They didn't hesitate, didn't soften it, just stated it like it was natural. Your sister will be living in your apartment. Of course she will. That's what you're there for. Like I was a backup plan, a spare room with feelings. When I got home, I didn't take off my coat. I walked straight to my office, the extra room, Mom had called it, and just stood there, the chair I built, the bookshelf I painted, my vision board, my yoga mat, all of it suddenly felt threatened. And the worst part? This wasn't new. This was just the latest chapter in a pattern I had spent my whole life brushing off. When I was in college, I got a full ride to University of Minnesota. I remember crying in a library bathroom when the letter came in, not because I was scared, because I had done something for me, finally. A week later, my mom handed me a printed out email from Aunt Sandra. Her daughter had gotten an internship in Nashville. "Wouldn't it be sweet if she stayed with you for the summer?" Mom said, like she was handing me a puppy. My place was a shoebox. Bunk bed, broken chair, barely space for me. Still, they sent her. I spent 3 months sleeping on the floor while she took my bed, used my skincare, and hosted her boyfriend on weekends like it was a dorm party. When I finally pushed back, my mum called that night and said, "Danica, you're on scholarship and lucky to even have that apartment. Don't act selfish. It's just one summer. Don't be dramatic." Just one summer, just one room, just one more thing I wasn't allowed to own. That night, standing in my apartment, I decided something. No more silent agreements, no more yes by omission, no more letting them narrate my life while I wait quietly in the background. I opened my laptop and searched for my lease. Section 5.3, long-term guests. Any occupant exceeding 14 consecutive days or 21 non-consecutive days in a 6-month period must be registered and approved by building management. Perfect. It wasn't about being petty, it was about setting a line in the sand. I drafted an email to May Whitaker, the building manager, asking for documentation on temporary guest policies and whether I could file a preemptive notice. Then I reached out to Nathan Cho, a project engineer I'd worked with during a clean energy contract in Charlotte. We'd kept in touch. He was neat, respectful, quiet, also currently looking for a place to stay while his apartment underwent plumbing repairs. I texted, "Nathan, you still looking for short-term housing? I've got a space, legal sublease, quiet, no drama, need someone I can trust." 20 minutes later, he called. "Danica, this would be a huge help. I can bring ID and sign whatever you need." The next day, we met in person. I had the paperwork ready, a short-term guest agreement, check-in, check-out dates, terms. Nathan read every line, signed without hesitation. I forwarded the files to May, along with a scan of his ID. She replied the same afternoon. Approved. "Thank you for following protocol." Then I ordered a small indoor camera facing the front door, discreet but secure. Not to monitor Nathan. I trusted him. It was for them. Because last time I left town, I came home to find my mother had entered without asking. Just to tidy up. She'd rearranged my kitchen and left a crock pot of soup on the stove. She said it was a favour, but it felt like trespassing dressed in an apron. 3 nights before the big move-in day, I packed up all my valuables, documents, passwords, journals, jewellery, and locked them in my office locker at work. Then I booked a 3-day solo stay in a small beach motel 2 hours away near Rosemary Beach. No one knew, no one was invited. I needed space to think without being guilted into submission. The morning I left, I stood by the door for a full minute. key in hand, bag packed, heart racing, not with fear, but with something sharper, defiance. For once, I wasn't running away. I was getting ahead of whatever storm they were bringing. As the elevator doors closed, I whispered, "Let's see how they like being surprised for once." And deep down, I knew this wasn't just me fighting for an apartment. It was me reclaiming every inch of life I had been told to share, surrender, or stay silent about. I left early Friday morning, just after sunrise. The city was still sleepy, and that kind of quiet felt sacred. My bag was already packed, camera system synced, everything valuable either locked up or with me. I didn't leave in fear, I left in strategy. It wasn't running away, it was stepping aside to watch what happens when people no longer find you easy to push. The beach town I landed in was 2 hours east, nothing fancy. Just a room, a balcony, and the sound of real silence. No schedule, no guilt, no decisions made for me. I checked my security app before sleeping. Nothing yet. Just Nathan making himself tea and reading a book on the couch. Then came Saturday. At 10:42 a.m, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front door. I opened the feed and saw it. My dad, standing with arms crossed, jaw tight, in front of my apartment door. Mum beside him holding a massive plastic bin like she was about to redecorate a dorm. And Ellery, oversized sunglasses, ponytail too high, arms folded like this was an errand she couldn't be bothered with. They knocked. Twice. Waited. Then the door opened. Nathan stepped forward, calm, wearing jeans and a plain white tee. He didn't even raise his voice. He just pointed to the clipboard in his hand, a signed guest agreement. Then stepped slightly to the side. That's when I saw her, May Whitaker, building manager, holding her phone, recording. I couldn't hear what was said, but I didn't need sound to feel it. My mum's face tensed. She pointed toward the apartment like she was trying to cast a spell. My dad took a step forward, stopped cold when May raised her hand and showed him something on her phone, likely the lease clause. Then came the best part, the security guard. Dark blue uniform, radio clipped to his shoulder, arms folded like he'd done this before. He said something short, firm. My mum's expression shifted from frustrated to embarrassed. Ellery turned around first, pretending to take a call. My dad looked at the camera mounted above the door, then at May. May pointed to it. He nodded once. They left. And I sat on the hotel bed, barefoot, hair wet from a shower, watching it all unfold in real time. I didn't smile, but I exhaled, the deepest exhale I've had in years. 10 minutes later, the texts started rolling in. From Mum, "I don't understand what you're doing. You locked us out. This is humiliating. Your father is furious. Ellery is in tears." From Dad, "You've gone too far. This isn't how family handles things. Call me now." From Ellery, "This is seriously cold. I had nowhere to go. You're unbelievable." There it was, the Reeve family classic. Spin the guilt, skip the accountability. I didn't respond. By that evening, my phone had 11 missed calls. Mum's last message read, "I stayed up with you when you had a fever at age 3. I bathed you in cold water, and this is how you repay me? You lock your own mother out and bring in a stranger?" That word, stranger, not tenant, not authorized guest, not even person Danica trusts. To her, the issue wasn't legal or personal. It was emotional dominance being challenged, and that, to her, was betrayal. The next morning I checked the camera feed again. Another motion alert. This time they came back, with May walking alongside them again. Dad tried talking first. May stayed calm, pointed to the clipboard Nathan had out. He flipped to the highlighted section, Lease Clause 5.3, Guest Policy. I watched Mum's lips move rapidly. No sound, just the universal look of a woman grasping for excuses that no longer hold. May listened. then simply shook her head. And then my favourite moment, she turned and walked away. Didn't argue, didn't defend me, didn't attack them, just walked. Because truth doesn't need to yell. I spent that afternoon on the balcony, phone face down, jazz playing low, my pulse still fast, but it wasn't anxiety anymore. It was adrenaline from finally not shrinking. For once, the line I drew had teeth, and someone else finally backed off first. Later that night, a message from Ellery popped up. I'm stuck in a car with all my stuff and nowhere to stay. This is what sisters do now? I stared at it, then closed the app. Not out of cruelty, out of peace. Because what she saw as abandonment, I saw as finally telling the truth. You never asked. You just took. Danica didn't scream. She didn't post it online or go on a revenge rant. She just enforced what was hers. And for the first time in her life, someone couldn't take it from her. We met at a small cafe tucked away in East Nashville. Neutral ground, no one's territory, no family pictures on the wall, no memories soaked into the furniture. I got there 15 minutes early, not because I was nervous, but because I needed to be in control of the room before they arrived. I ordered a cappuccino, sat near the window, kept my phone face down. At exactly 2:00 p.m, they walked in. Mum in the blue wool coat I bought her years ago. She looked smaller in it now, somehow. Dad in his usual crisp business jacket, straight-backed like this was a board meeting. Ellery came in last, holding a matcha latte, no makeup, hair tied back like she didn't have the energy to play a part today. No hugs, no greetings. We sat. I waited a beat before speaking. I didn't ask you here to fight, I said. I asked you here so I could say a few things, out loud, for once. Dad crossed his arms. Mom adjusted her scarf. Ellery stared at her drink. I looked straight at them. When you decided that Ellery would move into my apartment without asking me, it wasn't just rude, it was dismissive. Mom cut in quickly. You live alone. You don't even use the second bedroom. We thought that it was okay to override me, I said, calm but direct, because that's what it felt like, not a request, a ruling. Dad exhaled. You're making this bigger than it is. Am I? I asked. Or is this just the first time I didn't let it slide? Silence. I turned to Ellery. Did you ever call me, text me, ask what I thought about this plan? She shook her head softly. I assumed they said you'd be fine with it. And that's the pattern, I said. Assume I'll be fine, because I always have been, right? I looked at all three of them. Every family dinner, I'm told where to sit. Every holiday, I'm given a task. Every favour, I'm expected to say yes. But no one ever asks, do you want to? Are you okay? Do you even have the capacity for this? Mom's eyes started to well. I just wanted you two to be close, I cut in. No, you wanted to avoid the risk of me saying no, so you skipped the question. She dropped her gaze to the table. Her hands spun her wedding ring like a nervous tick. I've spent most of my life making room for other people, giving up space, time, peace, because I thought it meant love. But love without consent isn't love, it's control. Ellery's eyes met mine. For once, no sarcasm, no dismissiveness. I'm sorry, she said. I thought you'd just go along with it like always. I didn't mean to take advantage. I just got used to being prioritized. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. I didn't respond immediately. Just looked at her. This wasn't revenge. This was reflection. And it hit her harder than any yelling could have. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table. Maybe we did get used to you handling things. You were always the one who didn't need help. I raised my eyebrows. That didn't mean I didn't deserve help. He nodded, slowly, no excuse, just quiet acknowledgement. Mum wiped under her eye. I didn't think it would hurt you this much." "It didn't," I said. "Not this moment. It's the fact that this moment is just the latest in a long line of moments, and for the first time, I'm not swallowing it." I pulled a folded paper from my bag, slid it across to Ellery. She unfolded it, a printed list of available rentals in her price range. She blinked, then gave a small, stunned laugh. "You found these for me?" "No," I said. "You can choose. But I wanted you to start with options. That's all I ever wanted for myself. Options, not orders." She nodded. "If Mom and Dad help with a deposit, I can take that first one." Dad looked at her. "We will." Mom nodded too, not dramatic, just real. I leaned back in my chair. "If you want advice, I'm here. But I won't be the safety net anymore. You're not a child, and I'm not your fallback." Ellery held my gaze. "I'm trying." I believed her. We stood. No hugs, no group picture. But when I stepped outside, I didn't feel like I had to escape anymore. The air felt open, not soft, not warm, but real. We weren't back to normal. We were just no longer pretending the old normal had ever been okay. Danica didn't win a fight. She redefined the rules. And for once, the silence after her words wasn't avoidance. It was respect. 3 weeks after that cafe meeting, I got a text from Ellery. It was a picture, her standing in the middle of a small living room, holding up a set of keys like a trophy. The caption said, "Signed the lease. Mom helped a little with the deposit, but it's in my name now, finally." She wore no makeup. Her face wasn't filtered or perfectly posed like her usual Instagram stories. Just honest, unpolished, human. I stared at that photo for a while before replying. "Proud of you. Nothing more. Not, I forgive you. Not, welcome back. Just truth. And honestly, that was enough." The following Saturday, she invited me to check out her new place. Nothing fancy, 1 bedroom in Berry Hill, facing a narrow yard with string lights someone had left behind. We went to a burger joint nearby. She'd already ordered my favourite sandwich. That small detail hit harder than she knew. Over fries, she said, "I started therapy with Dr. Hartman, the one I used to call a scam." I raised an eyebrow. "You're actually going?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, picking at her straw wrapper. "Because you did it first. And I figured, if someone like you needs help, maybe I'm not as immune as I thought." Her voice was casual, but her eyes told a different story, vulnerability edged with self-awareness. We talked about work, about how she was trying to cut back on social media. No one mentioned Mum. No one brought up the apartment incident. We didn't need to rewind pain like a cassette tape. It happened. We survived it. We're learning from it. That was the mood. Things with my parents didn't change overnight, but they did change, slowly. Mum started texting before holidays. "Are you planning to join for Thanksgiving? If not, I can bring you leftovers. Just let me know." Not a command, not an expectation, a question. That alone felt like a seismic shift. At Christmas, she asked, "If you don't want to do dessert, I can order something, but if you have ideas, I'd love to hear them." It was the first time I'd heard "I'd love to hear them" from her in maybe ever. And my dad? He didn't say much, but his tone shifted, from instructive to curious. "How's work these days? Need me to look over that solar contract? Only if you want, no pressure." No pressure. That was new. One afternoon, he came into town for a meeting and called to ask if I had time for coffee. We sat at a quiet cafe near his hotel. He looked around, then said something that surprised me more than anything else that year. "When you left home, I thought it was just a phase. Now I think, maybe you did something the rest of us should have done a long time ago." I didn't say anything right away. Just took a sip of my latte, then asked, "Did you ever feel suffocated by the role you were handed?" He didn't look at me, but he rested his hand on the table and nodded, just once. and that was enough. We didn't need therapy talk or closure speeches, just recognition. As for me, life returned to rhythm, but not the old kind. This one was steadier, not quiet in a scared way, but in a deliberate way. A silence I chose. Every time the phone rings and I don't pick up, it's not avoidance, it's boundaries. Every time I get invited to something and ask, do I want to go? Before saying yes, I feel a little lighter. And when Mum texts, can you help with this? Instead of saying, take care of this for me, I feel the gap that used to suffocate me finally letting in air. My apartment looks the same. Same bookshelf. Same framed photo from that Utah hike. But it feels different now because every object, every inch was chosen, not surrendered, not repurposed. I no longer feel guilty for locking my door because sometimes love doesn't look like opening it wide. Sometimes love looks like drawing a line and saying, I need you to knock. One afternoon, I stood in my hallway with my hand on the doorknob, not in a rush to enter. Not because I was stalling, but because I was savouring something that used to be foreign. Peace. Not silence out of duty, but silence out of safety. No one waiting behind it. No suitcase by the wall. No voice messages asking me to give just once more. Just me. Home. And if you've ever had to fight for the right to call a space your own, you'll understand why that matters more than anything. And maybe this isn't just about apartments, or rooms, or even families. Maybe it's about learning that your worth isn't tied to how much you can tolerate. Have you ever felt like the only way to be loved was to stay useful, quiet, and available? Or like saying no would make you the villain in your own family? If this story hit close to home, drop your thoughts below. Because some of us learned too late that being kind shouldn't mean being invisible.